Hello. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to correctly hold your oblique calligraphy pen. These are a few tips that I've come to use daily for comfortable writing, whether it's for hours worth of writing or just an hour of practice. It's going to make your writing a little bit more comfortable, make your lines a little bit straighter, and help preserve your nib longer. So let's get started. Tip number one would be to always hold the pen down near the flange. So you would never hold the pen halfway up the holder where you have no control over what you're doing. You're always going to grip the pen right down next to the flange. Once your hand is in the right position, you always want to be pointing the nib toward the top edge of the paper. So the nib should be pointing toward the upper edge, whether your paper is turned or whether it's straight. The nib has to point toward the upper edge of the page. If you are trying to write in italic, the nib has to point toward the upper right-hand corner. Otherwise, you can point anywhere from the upper center to the upper right corner of the paper. Tip number three, if you try to write with your nib pointed to the left, you're going to, first of all, be damaging the tines of the nib as you pull it upward. But secondly, you won't be able to get the heavy line as you pull down because the nib has to point toward the upper edge to get a thick line. So when you press down, the two tines separate and you get a thicker line. But if you're pointing it toward the left, you won't be able to get a thicker line. Tip number four, as you're writing, you always want to lightly rest your palm on the writing surface. So you're not resting your body weight on that hand, you're putting that on your opposite hand. But this helps keep your hand nice and steady as you move it across the page. It just lightly glides across the surface of the paper, and that helps you get a smoother line. Your thumb should always be positioned on the holder for better control. So you want to have it right next to the flange, and that's going to help manipulate the holder as you're writing. But also you want to keep in mind that you never want to have your thumb across the holder like this. You need to have your thumb to control the pen as you're writing, and this will make it easier if it's on the holder. And the final tip that I have for you today is to never death grip your pen holder. You never want to squeeze it tighter for better control. That's just going to hurt your hand and your fingers after a few hours, and you don't want to be developing bumps in your finger like so. You want to be holding it comfortably and try to use your body to control the pen and your thumb better rather than gripping it really tight. If your knuckles are turning white from the lack of blood flow, then you're definitely gripping it too tight. So loosen it up and just try to hold it comfortably the way you would normally hold a pen, and it should make for a better writing experience. All right, well, I hope you found those tips helpful and that you think of them the next time you sit down to practice your calligraphy. Again, don't forget, for more tips and resources on your calligraphy technique, make sure you check out our blog, which is linked below, along with the resources for everything we used in this video. Thank you.